Welcome back, everybody. We're now on the preliminary exercises for Project 2. And the idea behind these is that we're using the basic concept of positive and negative shape. Positive meaning the part of the object that occupies space, that takes up space. Negative being the voids, the empty spaces in between the positive spaces. And we're using those to develop not only a sense of the relationship between the positive, the subject, and the negative, the background and foreground, or we're also trying to establish this idea of working toward creating an individual logo that represents ourselves, represents our interests. So I'm just going to give you a couple of quick examples to get you started. Again, we have laid out your project page the same way as we did before. So there are a total of 12 boxes. They're 4-inch tall, 5-inch wide, and they're laid out the same way that we did in the previous exercise. So the first vertical column is going to focus on creating positive and negative shapes with an everyday household object, like, for instance, a pair of scissors. So when you're looking at the handles in specific, the blue part here, the handle, is the positive. The open space is the negative space that I could put the pencil through, for example, right? So we're using these up-close approaches to these objects to crop them in different ways and play around with different ways of creating a feeling of positive and negative space. In the center column, you're going to do 4 variations. Use initials or numerals to create a sense of a logo that uses positive and negative shape. And in the final 4 vertical column, you're going to be creating a logo of your own, developing it as it relates to your own personal interests or a way that expresses something about yourself. So I'm going to zoom in here so you can see a little closer what I've already started with. Even if you're not all that skilled at drawing, I provided a PowerPoint that has some photographs of some household objects like scissors. So I just took a piece of tracing paper to make quick tracings of my objects. That one is this one. There you go. Once I had the images that I wanted traced, I took some transfer paper, and you can make your own or you can buy it. This is basically just a thin piece of paper that has graphite, the stuff that you use in your drawing pencil to make your marks, on one side of the paper and is blank on the other. So you put the graphite side down, you put your object or drawing that you're tracing on top, trace it with a ballpoint pen, and you get the image replicated beneath. So even if you're not so confident about your drawing skills, you should be able to use that method pretty quickly to create something that you can work with. So in creating these positive and negatives using the scissors, just adjusting the light so you can see a little better, what I have to decide is using just simple black and white if I can create the illusion of there being positive and negative areas within these. So I think what I'll try here with my scissors is I want to add a shape. Behind them that creates the illusion of a triangle. It looks like it's going to run off my image area, and that's fine. But I'm going to render this so that my triangle is positive, and the handles then should look like they're empty white spaces. So I wanted to go this way because it's sort of the opposite of what you would expect. The handles are the colored part. They read very much as the positive shapes. So I thought it might be kind of interesting to create this feeling of a shape behind the handles being positive, being filled in, to see if we can make the handles stand out against this backdrop. So some positive negative shape relationship there. Maybe in this version, I go the opposite way and make the handles stand out as solid shapes by filling them in. Marker seems to be giving up on me. Maybe now to get the handles, or rather the blade area to stand out, maybe we'll play with adding a negative shape, or adding a positive shape rather, next to the blades here. Another there. So then you can see where I'm headed with these. So the idea is to use the openings and solid spaces in these objects that you've found, or you can use the scissors that I photographed for you to create games between positive and negative space. With the letters and numerals, I chose my middle name to be included. So I'm Benjamin Carl Billingsley, so it's BCB, and I flipped the first B backwards so I could share that line between the two sides of the letter B, and I lined it up with this letter C. So I think if I fill in the B's as a solid shape, you'll start to see an interesting game of positive-negative being played. There you go. So that C is a negative space in that big rectangle between the two B's, but also you could read it as a positive against a void of that negative space of black. It's kind of an interesting game to play there. So the last example I want to throw out there is one that relates to stuff that I like to do in my own art making. I prefer to do printmaking as opposed to sculpture or ceramics. So I created a logo, or the beginnings of an idea of a logo, of a hand holding one of the tools that we use in printmaking, which is known as the brayer. And the brayer is used for rolling ink onto a wood block or a linoleum block. So I'm working with that basic idea, but to play with this concept of positive and negative shapes, I thought I could create the illusion of a thumb and a palm here. So fingers holding this tool. So something along those lines gets me closer to a logo that starts to suggest something that I'm interested in doing or a tool that I'm interested in using. So here you go. You can certainly start to spark some ideas, I think, from that. You're ultimately coming up with 12 designs: positive, negative shapes with a household object, positive and negative relationships with either your initials or some other text or numerical sequence. And then this is really probably the most important section. These are the ones where you're developing logos or ideas that use positive and negative shape that relate specifically to something that you personally are interested in. That's most likely the one that you're then going to be evolving into the final project for project 2.